Go. All right. Hi, Danny. How are you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Yeah, enjoying the summer.
That's good. Whereabouts are you based?
So I'm in Cheltenham at the moment.
Nice.
Yeah, and I work in Wolverhampton.
Awesome.
Yeah. What about you?
Manchester, if you can't tell by my accent.
I'm still learning all the accents. I thought it would be Yorkshire or something like that.
Yeah, no, there's an interesting mixture of accents up in Manchester, to be honest with you. So it's
Yeah.
difficult to pinpoint.
Oh, okay. That's very cool. Very cool. It's funny because I'm obviously not from the UK and I can't understand people from Wolverhampton. So when I'm at work in the office, people have to do like the normal sounding accent, or they just have to speak really slowly for me to understand.
Surely there's an app for that. Surely it'll probably cost you like £5, and it'll just
It has
completely
to
fix the
be,
problem.
yeah, like a Google Translate for UK accent.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Accent translate.
Yeah, so firstly, thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. My pleasure.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And I think it'll be really useful for me to learn more about you and what you do, as well as the people that follow me and are just starting out in SEO. So, I mean, the whole point of this venture of mine was to make it more accessible to learn, and to kind of bring the community closer, because I feel like that was lacking when I was starting out. I only started recently, but I'm really passionate about SEO, so I want to meet like-minded people. But yeah, so if you want to take it away, introduce yourself, what you told me earlier, that would be super interesting to hear.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Daniel Travis Brown. I've been doing SEO for probably 11 years, which seems like a long time when you stop to look down, but it doesn't feel like it's been so much of a long time, you know. So I've been doing SEO for a long time. I got into the industry as an apprentice. So I used to work in a restaurant, and obviously I was kind of getting tired of that. I was like in my early 20s, and I wanted to get into something that seemed a little bit more future-proof and a bit more interesting, something perhaps a little bit more techy. Or at least creative. Like I was quite a creative person, so I wanted something that had an avenue in there that had almost like was a bit of a creative output, if that makes sense. So I was quite good at writing, and I used to write little bits just as a hobby. So I interviewed as a content writer at a digital marketing agency in Oldham, which is in Manchester area. So I got that, and then I worked probably agency side for maybe 4 or 5 years, something like that. Worked my way up to obviously SEO exec, SEO manager, and then I went freelance for a little bit, took on some personal clients, and then I was headhunted by WeBuyAnyCar.com, which is a bit for anyone in America that's watching. It probably means nothing, but in the UK, it's quite a well-known automotive brand. And I was the head of SEO there for just under 4 years. So that really allowed me to take the skills that I'd learned so far and really apply them on a sort of big stage, competing with the likes of Auto Trader, Confused.com, big automotive brands like that. And really, you know, with a bit of a budget behind me and a content team as well that sort of worked underneath me, was really able to come up with a big brand SEO strategy, really, that was getting rankings for some of those highly competitive keywords.
That is really awesome. I know this website, and it's huge. I actually see ads for it every other day. So that is really impressive. And you mentioned you started out with content writing. Is that right?
Sure.
So as, I guess, a content expert as well, how important do you think content is? Because I know it's often overlooked.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and I suppose there's two ways of looking at it. From from starting from scratch, if you don't know anything about SEO, content is hugely important. It's essentially your opportunity to get keywords on the page, to structure a page in a way that Google likes, so H1, H2s with supporting H3s and all that sort of stuff. So even from just a basic perspective, if you've got a page that's really thin on content, adding more informational content to that page is really going to help uplift your rankings. But then, I'd apologize as well, I've got really bad hay fever today.
Oh no.
But then the other way to look at it as well is, especially this kind of new evolution of SEO, everyone's talking about semantics and topical clusters and that sort of thing. So it's not just about the content you've got on the page that you're trying to rank. It's about content that you've got supporting that page. Okay, so I'll give you an example for WeBuyAnyCar.com. The page itself, that let's say the sell my car page, and that was the keyword, or the keyword cluster it was targeting, is sell my car. There would be lots of other related articles surrounding that, like sell my BMW, sell my Bentley, sell my Citroen, sell, and another 52 pages, you know. So it's really about understanding not just what it is that you're trying to rank for, but what is that keyword position within a map of ideas or a map of topics, and then covering all of those things also, because that's, in Google's eyes, what makes you an authority on a subject, and it's worth ranking your website above others.
Yeah, that is very true. And while we're on the topic of content, can we touch a bit on AI generated content, because that's the big buzz at the moment? So what
Sure.
are your honest thoughts about it?
So I've ranked websites using AI content, so it works. There you go.
Yeah.
That's the answer. But you know, I attend conferences, and I'm in mastermind groups, and I know the big names in the industry, and they are always very tentative about this sort of thing. They feel that Google's going to evolve in such a way that it can identify AI written content. The idea is, with AI content, is that it's unique, and that you brief it. So you don't just go to AI content, write me an article about coffee subscriptions, and then just hope that it comes up with something good. You should do your due diligence to prime the AI to give you content worth ranking. So you want to look into it a bit yourself and say, well, what is the data? What is the information? What should the subheaders be that this thing really needs to produce, so I know that it's content worth ranking? And then there's no reason for Google to have a problem with it, because it's still informational content. It's providing a good user experience. It's answering questions. What's not to like about that? Just because a computer read it doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
Yeah, that's true. What I've seen in social groups and other SEO specialists saying it is that a lot of people would be obsolete, if that makes sense, once you start using AI content, because it does write it a lot faster and it is a lot cheaper. So you can completely take out the main content writer from the equation and have 2-3 editors, for example, who would fact check, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, what does it take to be a content writer? I suppose it takes a creativity. It takes a bit of an academic aspect. If it's something like, you know, for a legal website or finance or something, there needs to be that level of education, or at least a sort of like academic ability to research, cite references, that sort of thing. There will always be that sort of tier, you know, to that sort of standard to meet. So really, there's an opportunity now for people that see themselves as content people to become shepherds for AIs. You know, if they can say, well, actually, rather than sitting and whining about it, why don't I really get to grips with this AI now, so that when someone because it's going to happen, AI is coming for everything, not just content, man. AI is literally, you know, if you've got a smartphone, you've probably interacted with 4 or 5 AIs today. You know, so it's coming one way or another. It's about getting in front of that and becoming someone that understands it, and that knows how to drive it, and that knows how to manage it in the same way that you would manage a team. So I personally don't see it as a threat in any way. And I'm a content guy at heart. I'm a content creative, so I don't see it as a threat, really. I see it as a huge opportunity. And the same as any evolution in any industry, there's always going to be people that pick it up and get in front of it, and there'll be people that don't. And that's really where that value gap is going to grow now. So I definitely advise people to really get to grips with this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is that I hear that a lot of people started SEO through content writing. I did as well. And I didn't use any AI to write content. And I wish I did, because all the hours wasted on just trying to write it yourself, and it wouldn't even be unique at the end of it all. You know, it'd be about 85% and you'd still have to tweak it. So I think you're right about the fact that people need to learn how to use AI rather than just shy away from it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a nice problem to have, is that you wish you'd have heard of AI when you started SEO. Like, there was no such. When I started SEO, like, content writing was chipping it into stone with a chisel. You know, it's you know, some of the things I used to do to get content as well. Like, you're totally right. It's still not unique, because you're still finding the information from other sources on the internet. And like one good trick that I picked up when I was doing content writing was to just speak to the client and ask them questions directly rather than citing it elsewhere. Say, I want to talk to you about something that's not really out there. Like, how do you tell me more about the product? How's it manufactured? How do you install it? Tell me this stuff. Let me get it from your brain rather than another page on the internet and then turn that into web copy. That kind of solves that problem. But one thing I used to do is, and this is like when I was first starting out, I would watch like YouTube guides to something, and then I would transcribe it into a Word doc. Then I'd check that, I'll put it in quotations, I'd check that it hadn't already been done by some website out there. And then if it didn't, it was just totally unique. So I'd just pause the video, like listen to 10 seconds, pause it again, type it out, and I'd just do that and respin it like
clever.
but that was the technology I was dealing with like 1,000 years ago or whatever. But
yeah, I guess you can say life got easier now because you've got so much help from robots, really.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, moving on, you did mention you were in the automotive niche before.
Sure.
What niche or niches do you specialize in now, and can you describe them all?
At the minute, I'm really enjoying local optimization. So I'm not sure if you've tried a tool called Local Falcon, but it's fantastic because basically what it will do is it will search your client's keyword, assuming that they're going for map pack rankings, like local rankings. So let's say plumber Manchester, solicitor Manchester, something like that. It will search that keyword from lots of different points on a grid, and then it will show you where they rank on the map because proximity is such like a big consideration for local. It will search it from all the different points across their city, across the town, and it will show you where they rank. So it shows you how much of the map they actually have coverage on, right? So I'm really enjoying playing with local stuff right now. If I had to pick a niche that I specialize in, I would say automotive, just because I've ranked for some crazy keywords in that niche. But really, when you learn like the fundamental components of SEO, you can really apply them to more or less any industry. And if you know how to do SEO for very competitive keywords, you can almost like reverse engineer that to fit different campaigns. Obviously, certain things like finance, medical, the your money, your life niches have some extra considerations for like credibility, expertise, authority, trustworthiness, that stuff. But outside of that, you can really apply the principles of SEO to more or less any niche and just make sure that the content and the links kind of line up with that stuff, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And what kind of not naming the companies, but what kind of businesses did you work with in the past, maybe prior to having an agency?
So lots of different ones really. Finance was a big one, loans companies, bathroom companies. Weirdly, I had a lot of bathroom clients. Maybe that's the universe telling me I need to shower more, I don't know. Yeah, so a big range of different ones really. I always liked the idea of niching down. I think that can be useful for people that find it difficult to market themselves. If you become a specialist for a niche, so dental, medical, I've had a lot of dental and medical clients as well, which is cool. That sort of thing is quite good because they network and they'll refer you to other people in the industry as well. But yeah, I've always had kind of a mixture of clients. I've had some big brand clients before I was at We Buy Any Car, like people that make sweets, like household name people that make sweets and confectionery and stuff like that. So yeah, a bit of a mix really.
Very interesting. And I'm sure you worked with both large businesses, like you mentioned earlier, and maybe startups. You ever worked? Yeah. So what was your experience with that? How would that differ? A big company that already is established and just a little startup?
Absolutely. So that's a really good question. So bigger businesses and brands, corporations, that sort of thing, tend to have a team or at least an in-house digital marketing manager for implementation. So that was often quite a nice way to do SEO really, which is here's a list of recommendations. They don't always need to pay you for the time to update all of the page titles and meta descriptions on a page. And to be honest, that's not this kind of SEO work that you want to be doing really. Like it's really, they are more interested in strategy and sort of high level stuff. They might even have an in-house content team or an in-house PR team that you can consult with to make sure that you're getting some links back from the PR activity. So that's the sort of relationship you tend to have with bigger brand clients. Smaller and startups and locals, they don't know what SEO is. A lot of the time they don't want to know, they just want to see the results. So it's as long as you're being compensated fairly for the time that you're investing in campaigns like that, and if they don't want to hear it, they just want to see the end of month report, They want to see the numbers moving in the right direction, and they want to see actually how much revenue is generated, or how much organic growth at least is generated. So yeah, I'd say that's the difference between them, is that the smaller or startups, they just want to see the needle moving. The bigger ones really love the strategy, they love the consultation, and also you can put a presentation or a pitch together for clients like that. If we're coming on the subject of selling SEO, you can really put together a pitch that a bigger brand client is qualified to appreciate. You can talk in higher level terms. You can talk about semantic SEO, content clusters, page silo strategies, and they'll go, I know a bit about SEO and this guy knows what he's talking about. Whereas the smaller ones, you really need to put that into terms that they're going to appreciate, really, if that makes sense. You don't want to like show off and try and act like some smart, I won't swear, but like a big head, because they're just not going to appreciate it. If anything, you're going to have wasted yours and their time, because you're talking in a language that they just don't speak.
Yeah, exactly. That is a very good point. It's been an issue for me as well, and obviously you've got 10.5 years on me an SEO experience, but I do feel that already, and it's quite an interesting learning curve dealing with bigger clients and very small ones. So you kind of have to change the way you speak to them, as you said.
Exactly, and both of them will appreciate it in their own ways.
Exactly. It's a quite good psychological practice, and like getting to know people and working with people to really make them like you and what you do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So moving on to the golden question, can you tell me and tell everyone ways to increase ROI with SEO?
Yeah. So one thing that WeBuyAnyCar has a very good example of this, actually. So if you're bringing a new client on, or you're looking at your own projects, one thing that I always do is to look at the keywords that the website's already ranking for. And for someone that's perhaps neglected SEO in the past, or they might even have an agency working that's just not being totally transparent with them about the keywords they're ranking for, what you'll find is a high percentage of their keywords is coming from branded traffic, or like name-based traffic. So WeBuyAnyCar, everyone knows them by name. There's a jingle that is just totally locked the name of that brand into people's minds. I'm not sure if they used to have ads on TV years ago, and they still use the jingle on like radio ads and stuff now. So the vast majority of their organic traffic was coming from brand related search, people searching for WeBuyAnyCar, WeBuyAnyCar.com, WeBuyAnyCar with spaces or without spaces. It was all just that, right? So the question is, how do we increase ROI? How do we increase the amount of organic traffic that we're getting outside of that? Because otherwise we're just riding on the coattails of the radio advertising, TV advertising, the PR activity, email shots, and all this stuff. And the answer to that is non-branded service or product-based keywords, right? So I'll give you another example. I recently did an audit and a strategy for a lawyer's firm in Venice Beach over in America, right? And one of the issues that they were having is that the agency was saying, well, organic traffic's going up month on month, and but they were reporting on all organic traffic sort of clustered together. If actually you stripped out all of the name-based, the brand name keywords, and also people were searching for the lawyers that work there by name, so they were searching for the individual lawyers. If you identify all that, like put it in SEMrush, look at everything they rank for on the first page, and then identify all the ones that are name or brand search and remove that, not much percentage remains for people that were searching for injury lawyer, VA, injury lawyer, Venice Beach, and all this sort of stuff. So a big wedge of that organic traffic came out, and then actually, the SEO agency probably knew this, but they just weren't being very clear with the data. So that would be a really good starting point, in my opinion, is to increase your ROI, would be strip out anything that's brand search. Stop patting yourself on the back for people knowing about you by name. It's a good thing that they know you, but you need to you can't grow that. That's just going to grow anyway. That was always that was traffic you was always going to get. So focus on the traffic where the game is played, really, with other SEOs. Think about service-based keywords, product-based keywords, or service and location-based keywords as well, and just separate them out and report on them individually.
So would you say then that adding new keywords and updating content would be the first thing you do when you pick up a client?
100%. Yeah. The first thing that I do when I pick up a new client would be keyword research. So it's easy to look at the keywords that they say they want to rank for, but you have to know how to go through that process of keyword research, identifying related keywords, and almost creating like a cluster of keywords around a topic rather than just one or two. Adding new content is always going to be massively important. I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to use something like Surfer SEO or onpage.io, but those are really fantastic for identifying not only if you've not got enough words on the page, but also what related phrases or synonyms and that sort of thing are missing. So again, for example, I've got my coffee here. So if I was trying to rank for coffee subscription, it's likely that a software like Surfer would come back and say, well, you know, you need an extra 400 words on the page, and you do say coffee subscription the right amount of times, but you don't say barista, you don't say coffee bean, you don't say morning routine and things like this, and it will draw those conclusions from the pages that are ranking like the top 5 places, and then it will basically pick out commonalities on those pages that you are missing. So doing it, going like you say, going through a keyword research phase and then a content revision phase is always massively important, and those as well are the things that you can directly control. Once you get into link building, then that becomes a little bit of a game of not chance, but the time investment versus the results is never guaranteed. So content development, on-page optimization is something you can directly control, and therefore should always be at the very beginning of a campaign, because then it's in place and it can sort of compound while you're thinking about links, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned Surfer SEO. So actually, there's this AI content generator, Jasper, and you can integrate Surfer into it. I don't know if you've used it before. So actually, it does most of the work for you, Surfer. So it tells you how long the content is, as you mentioned, and what keywords you need. So that is what our content writers use at the moment, and it's been incredibly useful. So obviously the keyword research comes from the SEO team, which is then passed on to the content team, and then they play around with the keywords that Surfer suggests as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's more or less the exact process that I would go through myself.
Yeah,
so it definitely works.
definitely. And since we're on the topic of keyword research, I feel like this is quite a split opinion, but a lot of specialists say that you should start ranking for easy keywords, so low difficulty. But do you think that you should rank for both? So very high difficulty for when you start growing and low difficulty, or one or the other?
Yeah, so that's a good question, really, and I suppose there's a broader idea that kind of ties into. So when I first started out, that was kind of the message as well, which is you should target long tail keywords for short term increases in organic traffic, with the long term goal of gradually improving your visibility for you know, more competitive keywords. But if you think about what I was saying earlier, which is if there's a big keyword there that needs to be ranked for, so let's say sell my car or something like that, the kind of content that you should be creating to bolster that page anyway. So let's say you're going with a page silo strategy, which means you've got a parent page at the top you're trying to rank for, and then you have many sort of smaller topically related pages that are outside of that, be it on the blog or, you know, individual sort of guide hub pages or whatever. All of those should kind of be on that topic anyway. So they might be like FAQ things. So it might be sell my car as the top page, and then how does mileage affect my car's value? Could be one underneath. Or can I sell a Cat D car, which means a car that's had damage, right? Or how to value a classic car. These are all things that really get searched, that are way more niche and like specific. And it's so, to answer your question, these should be ranking anyway for these less competitive terms. But the real point is that all of these smaller pages under here, I'm trying to look at my camera, so I'm like making this graph on my screen, right? All of these smaller pages under here should be linking internally to this top page, and therefore kind of bolstering the rankings on that top page anyway, because these are like topically relevant internal links now, right? So to answer your question, it's always good to rank for less competitive keywords in the long term, in the short term, but that should be a byproduct of creating content that is really there to support and push the top page. So it's kind of like you get two benefits from it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. And since you were in the automotive niche and you know a lot about it, and you've given us so many examples from there, can you talk a bit more about how automotive SEO differs from other niches, if we go into a lot of detail?
Absolutely, yeah. So I suppose there's lots of this is a nice opportunity, I suppose, to talk about like semantics. So um, if you think about a topic like the word car,
Mhm.
the word car, right? You could also say that the word Audi and the word BMW kind of means car as well.
Mhm.
In the same way that like the words can have different meanings as well. So like a cup, for example, can mean a coffee cup, but it can also mean football championship cup. And you know that Google's really good at sort of understanding this now and starting to attribute that words and phrases and brand names even have different meanings. So automotive has got lots and lots of instances like that because there's so many car brands. There's Audi, BMW, Bentley, Chrysler, ssangyong. I had to write a page about ssangyong. Who drives a ssangyong? Sorry to anyone that's watching that drives a ssangyong. It's just very difficult to get good information about that brand. So there's lots of different pages that you need to write, I suppose, and you need to cover. You don't just need a sell my car page. You need a sell my Audi page, a sell my BMW page. But then also there's lots of guides and there's lots of questions. So there's so much opportunity for content in automotive. People searching like, how does mileage affect my car's value? As long as you're sort of keeping it in that lane of relevance. So it's not just, oh, write about cars. It's, well, write about car pertaining to selling a car, write about car pertaining to value or how much is it worth. Or, you know, there's the thing that you actually do, which we buy any car, they buy any car. So you need to almost like use the content and cross that bridge between what they do and what the content's saying. So it's not just cars, it's selling cars or valuing cars or answering questions about cars with damage and stuff like that. So that, and it's very competitive. Automotive is so competitive, competing with Auto Trader. It's unbelievable that we was able to rank some of those pages because Auto Trader's in-house team is huge, and I had a very small content team and me. We used to use agencies before then. So when I first went into We Buy Any Car, we would outsource to agencies, and I would be the in-house implementation guy that we were talking about earlier, and it just never really worked out, and they weren't moving the needle at all, and a lot of their strategies were around link building. It was around and they were great agencies as well, like big name agencies. I won't name any names, but they were getting links, they were getting coverage, but it just wasn't moving the needle. And then when I said, right, let's stop doing this, because we'd hired and fired probably 5 SEO agencies at that point, which, and if you want to talk about selling SEO later, that's why I've got so much experience. I've seen so many pitches just by hiring them and stuff, you know. But I suppose once we made that transition from focusing on links to focusing on content development and creating out these hubs, that's when it went, and it's still sat ranking very, very well now because that sort of foundational structure of content still in place.
Right. So I guess content is the cornerstone.
100%.
Yeah, very interesting. And you did touch upon selling SEO. You've obviously got a lot of experience. You have your own agency. So can you talk us through that? How do you sell SEO?
Okay, well, what I'll do is I'll start by telling you how not to sell SEO, right? Because I wasted a lot of time and a lot of money learning how to not sell SEO. So it really comes down to how to get the leads to begin with. Once you've got a good lead, it's not too difficult to sell it. It's kind of like they need it to happen anyway. You've just got to say the right things that give them the confidence to choose you. But it's about getting the leads to begin with. And I think where a lot of SEOs go wrong is they focus on outbound, especially when they're just starting. It's like, right, I really need to get myself out there. I need to get clients. I'm going to do cold email campaigns. So now I've got to go and spend $1,000 on a course that teaches me how to do cold emails. I did that. I spent thousands of pounds on a cold calling agency. Big mistake. That was absolute garbage. Even things like paid social ads and stuff like that. I mean, it can work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying for the money that it costs and the time that it costs and the amount of stuff you have to learn about to get to the point where you've got ads and stuff out there anyway, it just doesn't work. It's far better, in my experience, and this isn't a guess, this is the truth. It's far better to have channels out there that bring you inbound leads. So that can be obviously ranking your own website for an SEO related keyword in your area is a really good one, because someone goes SEO agency Manchester, well, by definition they're ranking above all the other SEO agencies, and that is their business. That's like a cobbler having really nice shoes. You go, this guy's got some nice shoes, man, I'm going to buy some shoes off this guy. By definition, of SEO that outranks all the others is the one to go to, right? So that's a good place to start, but that takes time, and obviously it's an ongoing battle. So if you can have profiles out there on things like, and this is just for the people starting out right now, get on things like Upwork or Fiverr, things like that. Have a presence out there on as many places as possible where someone that is looking for your services can find you. They can read about you or watch a video about you or something like that that qualifies you as, well, not only have I found them, but they seem to really know what they're talking about. They present their ideas and their experience in a way that quickly kind of gets that message across. And if you come across as an authority and quite enthusiastic, and you're kind of really plugged into this world, that would be enough for them to initiate a conversation. And then it really becomes about you fulfilling that promise then and saying, well, I'm still this guy, I'm still this girl, but now I'm going to apply that to your brand. Tell me about what you're looking to do, what you're looking to achieve. They can essentially tell you exactly the kind of customers they're looking for, and then you can use your experience then to put either an audit of their existing website together, or a proposal or a pitch or a strategy document or whatever it is that people like to do. I like to do like recorded audits of people's websites. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that because I am going to do a course about selling SEO later this year. So that's going to be my little golden ticket, really. But so just things like that. If you're good on camera or you're comfortable, that can be a really good tool, because it allows you not only to talk at a high level about SEO, or talk at their level that they'll appreciate about SEO, but also you can sort of lean on your ability to communicate. Like, if you're enthusiastic about SEO, you're not going to get that across in a PDF. You're going to get that across by the look on your face when you're talking about it, or the tone of your voice when you're talking about it. If you're not good on camera at all and everything you say sounds boring, probably a PDF is going to be better. But if you're more comfortable, like for example, you seem very comfortable on camera and things like that, that's an awesome tool and an awesome skill to have, because you can then really communicate your knowledge and your passion for SEO, and also your enthusiasm about working with their brand in particular. If you're a content or a creative like yourself and like me, you can come up with a few creative ideas before you even do a proposal. So you can really get that stuff across and be like, well, what about this? Have you thought about these kind of guides? Have you thought about a content marketing campaign like this idea? And they'll go, I never thought of that. That's a really good idea. So it just allows you to put across a little bit of enthusiasm, really. So that would be the principle of it, which is you'll get work from a much higher rate. You have a much higher success rate by having them come to you and then pre-qualify themselves. So if they land on your website or your Fiverr page, or even if it's a referral from somebody else, you can incentivize other people to give you a referral. If anyone's interested, the going rate in SEO is 15% recurring of what you charge. You just tell someone that you'll give them 15% and they will send you leads for sure. So just like network with other people that are kind of closely related to SEO. So branding agencies, PR agencies, PPC agencies that don't do SEO, it's very complementary. Social media agencies, and those referrals go both ways. And presumably someone will have asked you in the past, do you do social media? Or something like that, or they might ask, do you do web design? Do you do this and that? Ideally, you wouldn't do that, because you don't want your job to be this big messy thing where one day you're building websites, the next day you're doing social media for your clients. It's better, in my opinion, to refer that to someone that's got a specialist agency, and then all of a sudden referrals go both ways. So you're getting SEO leads and you're passing web design leads or social leads over, and obviously there's an incentive there both ways to do so.